Ladies, what's the weirdest fetish a guy has dropped on you all of a sudden with little to no warning? Were you with it or against it? Guy told me he likes tall women. Really tall women. Wanted me to dress up and play at being a giantess. We were halfway through our first cup of coffee. So this actually happened to my best friend Drew, who is a male. But it's worth sharing. He was fooling around with this girl he had met, and he could not get her off. They screwed countless times, and he would try anything he could to get her off, but he couldn't do it. She claimed their sex was great and never mentioned anything to make it better for her. So finally he just asks if there's anything he can do to get her off, and she says she has a kink but it scares everyone off. He asks what it is and explains that he isn't most guys and he'll do whatever, and she asks, "Would you be willing to take it on me? I'm kind of weird, but there's something really sexy about having a guy treat me like garbage." My buddy was finally convinced to do said act, and propped over her midsection and lays a huge steamer right on her tit stomach region as she plays with herself. To this day, he says he has never heard any girl come harder than when this turd made landfall on her. We later found out that Drew was not the first person we know she asked to dump on her. Several people we know told us they had been solicited, but only Drew made her dreams come true, I guess. I had been with my ex for almost 2 years. We went for a walk in the woods one beautiful afternoon. About halfway through the trail he said he had something important to ask me, and of course I was expecting a proposal. Since we had been talking about getting married for a while, instead of proposing, he asked, "If I let you get any kind you want, will you have a sex with a dog so I can watch?" Even something like 12 years later I still have trouble believing he actually asked that. I was very much against it after I stopped laughing and realized he was serious. We did not stay together. I did not duck a dog for him. LPT. Don't wait to let your significant other know about your deal-breaking kinks. Edit. This blew up. I went through some of the comments but I feel like it would take several hours to answer everything and maybe that's weird. IDK. So here are some answers to frequently asked questions. We lived together at the time and had a lease. The relationship effectively ended then and there, but we were sort of stuck together for a few more months. As it turns out he'd been ducking his way through my friends for a while anyway. Jokes on them. Despite the theories I've seen floating around, this was not his way of making me break up with him. As I learned later, his harmless bunny avatar was actually his fursona. He had assured me that it was only a casual interest, and he was not a furry. I realized eventually that was wrong. I did not date him knowing he was a furry. We weren't together for 12 years. We were only together around 2, including dating and the actual, official relationship. This happened roughly 12 years ago, between maybe 2006 and the end of 2007. I might be getting the dates wrong. It's a while ago. Several years ago I was just talking to this guy on OkCupid. We hadn't even met yet, and he asked me if I'd be okay with erotic hypnosis. I was like, what? And he sends me a book. However, then he tells me that his last girlfriend and he had gotten into this elaborate fantasy roleplay and somehow decided that they were actually hypnotizing each other, and one night she convinced him she was not real and left him sobbing in a corner. And he wanted to keep doing that. Nope. Nope, nope, nope. I just recently broke my hand and it's currently in a cast. I posted a photo of me in the cast on my knitting business Instagram. Small following. Almost all women. I got the normal likes from people I interact with, but some weird likes and new follows from guys as well. One commented asking how bad the break was. I got messages like, how did you injure yourself? And how many fingers are in the cast? And can I sign the cast? I pulled up a couple profiles to see what sort of accounts these guys follow. And yep, lots of casts. That's the day I learned that cast fetishes are a thing. That's also the day I learned to be very careful with my hashtags. Eater. Although you've all given me great ideas, the hashtags I used were not so creative. In fact, I went back and checked and the only cast related hashtag I used was broken hand. Not even anything about the cast itself. Not me, but friend told me a story about one of her Tinder dates. Fairly boring, non-sexual first date convo. She gets up to go to the bathroom, and as soon as she sits back down dude is like, "So how do you feel about P-play?" Like, would you pee on me? I guess her going to the bathroom was enough of a segue for this guy. One guy wanted me to berate his small d and tell him how worthless it was. I didn't want to do it because I have mad d respect, but I did because I also believe in embracing your kinks. Knife stuff. No warning at all. I knew he was kinky and slightly weird, but not like dangerously weird until he was having difficulty reaching orgasm. I said something along the lines of, how can I help you finish, and he slides a fake magician's knife out of the nightstand next to him and said he had a stabbing fetish. Wanted me to pretend to be murdered by him. It was a nuclear red flag, but there I was. He's already inside me. So I'm like, whatever, I'll go along with this. He came. I left. The next day my abdomen was totally beat the duck up. Bruises all over my torso and chest from him jamming a stupid plastic knife into me. It opened my eyes to how sexual stabbing scenes are in horror films, as he explained that's where the fetish began. From growing up watching it like Halloween. Never again though, shudders. He was into blood play and wanted to make little cuts all over my body with a really pretty knife. Yeah, no thanks. Guy here, but this one confused the crap out of me. I started dating this girl and at first things were normal, but she started picking fights with me and then having angry sex. It got to the point that she literally refused to have a sex without a loud shouting match first. It was really hard to break up with her because when I told we were through she thought it was foreplay. Eventually I had to just ghost her. Not me, but a friend of mine was talking to this guy who said, before we go any further, I need to come clean about something. Please don't think I'm strange. I've got a really weird fetish. Instantly we think it's gonna be something extreme. Maybe involving bodily fluids. I don't want to kink shame, but just something downright gross. He says, I need to be wearing a fleece? ? Patagonia was his preference. It's like innocent compared to the ones in this thread, but just bizarre. I had a friend who told me some Tinder dude brought a backpack of fetish gear to their first date and was surprised that she found it weird. I was dating a guy who confided in me after I confided in him some of my more ethically ambiguous fetishes, that he wanted us to have daughters and raise them to be or sex toys. No thank you, Adam. My best friend told me about how she had been dating this guy for a few months and they took a camping trip together. They were having sex in the tent and he puts his forearm down on her neck and starts cutting off her air supply. She freaked and thought he was going to kill her, to later find out he had a choking fetish he never told her about. Since more than one person has asked. No, the relationship did not last. My boyfriend likes people to watch him pee. Not peeing on people or things. Just peeing in the toilet normally. It's weird, but honestly I'm into weirder. He wanted to paint my toenails, then ejaculate on them. I was down as long as I approved the color. He did a great job. Even put little hearts on the big toes and gave me a foot rub. It didn't do much for me sexually, but I got a pedicure and we had fun. He did wait for the polish to dry first. There was some dirty talk, though mostly I just wiggled my toes at him. It made him laugh and turned him on. It was fun. Not me, but I heard a story from a friend one time who got with this guy one night and he said, I like being a little rough. Are you okay with that? She, without thinking much of it, decides to play along and the dude slaps the it out of her and says, you like that? She noped out real quick. My first partner was very experienced and knew what he wanted. Early into our physical relationship, he told me that he wanted me to slap him and tell him how he was a bad person. It was difficult for me to get on board with that. I'm a very nice person. What could I even say? I bet you don't recycle. Was seeing a lawyer while I was in college and he was into de-shaming and a chastity cage. I really liked him, so I indulged him some. Kept his little D-cage keys on my keyring. The whole shebang. But he could not separate fetish and life. So our whole relationship turned into fetish instead of an actual relationship. I once met a guy on Tinder who, out of nowhere, asked me if I could duck his dog while he watched. I was very against it. I have been dating this man for 2 years that I met on POF. About 6 months in, he told me he had a balloon fetish. He said he had been jacking off with them since he was a teen, and his fantasy was to have actual sex on one. He said he had always been afraid to tell anyone. but he sensed that I would be the type of person who wouldn't run away. At first I was like OMG, but then I was like duck it. What's the harm in trying something new? So he brings out this huge 6-foot long balloon that he has to blow up with an air pump. The thing is huge, and he tells me he owns a ton of them, all shapes and sizes. At first it was weird trying to straddle that humongous balloon and leaning over it so he could duck me doggy style on it, all the while being terrified that it was going to pop in my face at any given moment. But I got used to it and we do it often. It has popped in my face quite a few times and we both get a good laugh. I figure if it makes him happy then why not? Also, if anybody has any suggestions on new things to try with the balloons, let me know. I was walking to my college and on the way I saw a couple walking in front of me. I was late for my class and when I rushed past them I heard the girl say, "I knew you were into weird fetishes, but the most I'll do is piss on somebody." Don't even wanna know what the boy said. Obligatory not me but a friend. I was seeing this woman and she told me about this guy she had met at the bar with a friend that she was really into. Something about him, she said he was just really sexy. Anyway, the three of them were back at the apartment on her couch and her friend says she's going to go grab some more beers from her apartment down the hall and she'll be right back. The girl I was seeing is very sexual and she saw this as an opportunity. She asked him if he thought he could come before she got back with the beers. He said, "I'm willing to try." So she started going down on him furiously, seeing if she can make him come before her friend got back. A few seconds into it he grabs the back of her head and starts forcing it down. No biggie, she has no gag reflex and likes rough blowjobs, so she's totally down with that. Then she hears a click and feels something hard pressed against the back of her head. This asshole, mid blowjob, pulled out a revolver and cocked the hammer and put it to her head. Then started telling her he was going to pull the trigger if she didn't make him come before she got back. Keep in mind, he was already no doubt getting the best blowjob of his life. He came about 2 terrifying minutes later and she sat up quietly freaking out. He noticed she was second from either screaming or busting out crying and he asked what was wrong. It wasn't loaded or anything. Honestly, apparently the guy gets off on gunplay and didn't feel it pertinent to tell anyone ahead of time. Since there was a lot of interest in this story, I will give a quick follow-up to some questions. No, she did not call the police. When her friend arrived back to the apartment, he had gone to the bathroom and she could see that her friend was shaken up, so she went back to the bathroom and told him to leave immediately. A month or so later he found her on FB and messaged her apologizing and asking her to get together. She declined. Also, it should be noted I was just as horrified as you guys were to hear this, even more so because she was someone I cared about. She told me she still sees him around town from time to time and that he owns a vape shop, but would not give me any of his information and asked that I just let it go, being as it was a few years prior and she didn't want to dredge up bad memories. She has been a lot more careful since that incident. The thing that scares me the most about this guy is that it must have been a power trip because it was completely unnecessary. She was willingly doing that for him and having fun, and he took it upon himself to pull a gun and take advantage of her. I sincerely hope he never pulls that stunt or worse again on another woman. I was seeing this guy a couple of months. At this point we were exclusive and sleeping together, but weren't much more serious than that. One night, we're getting hot and heavy. He's about a millimeter from actually penetrating me when he stops where he's at and asks me, "Do you trust me?" I wasn't sure what that meant, so I asked him exactly that. "What do you mean?" He wouldn't explain. He just kept repeating, "Do you trust me?" Eventually I sort of snapped at him and said, "I mean, we're literally about to have a sex. So yeah, I guess so. Why?" Without answering he just open palm slapped across the face. Hard. I kicked him out of my house and our relationship dissolved shortly thereafter. The kicker? While we were getting to know each other, he told me his ex was into some really rough stuff and that he hated it. That, kids, is called projection. Edit. No shame for having kinks, provided everyone involved is healthy and consenting, and legal. But please don't spring kinks on your partners and definitely don't actively lie about yours if you ever want to try it in the future. Right after I found his stash of dildos under his bed, he asked if he could pee inside me. Edit. Didn't answer the last part of the question, but I was against it, for health reasons and because I wasn't ready for that level of intimacy. I went over to his house for the first time and he wanted to go from the first kiss to fisting. He was just awkward and had never had sex before, so he didn't know how to broach the subject. I politely said no and we laughed it off and continued with our date. He turned out to be an overall sweet dude and we're still together. Still haven't let him fist me though. Edit. Wow. Gold, silver, and 11k upvotes for not getting fisted. Thanks guys. Was talking to a guy online on a dating site. One of those guys that seemed kind of too good to be true. Out of my league. Good looking. Great job. Owned his own home. Traveled nationally and internationally once a year on vacation. I figured there had to be a catch. He had a cuckold fetish. I'll give him this. At least he was honest about it early on rather than waiting until I was invested in a relationship. He was also very polite about it when I declined. My ex was into poop. I was not. Guy I was dating wanted me to vomit on his D, or so I assume. He never actually asked for this. He just kept getting more and more aggressive with face ducking. The last time I slept with him he was really being aggressive with the throat D'ing. So I said I am going to throw up, chill out. But this just prompted him to excitedly suggest we go and continue the BJ in the shower. Not about that. Had to PCE out. 241. Seeing this guy in college, apparently mild-mannered pre-med. First time we're having sex. I'm pretty vocal and he does the "do we need to do something with that mouth" line. I'm thinking he wants a blowjob but he immediately produces a huge roll of fancy medical tape out of nowhere and, after politely asking first, proceeds to tape my mouth shut. I was totally into it. So he lucked out there. Same guy sometime later, probably feeling emboldened now, is engaged in the act and, in what I presume was the heat of passion, starts calling me a chunky whore, among many other totally inappropriate racial epithets. I got the duck out of there immediately and we stopped seeing each other shortly thereafter. Moral of the story, don't assume that because your partner is down with one kink they'll be cool with another. I'm sure many people get into ethnically inaccurate race play but always attain consent first. That goes for introducing any new element into play. Be safe and have fun out there. He asked if he could watch a dog duck me. I declined. I dated a guy that was into virgin roleplay. He also believed he had a huge enough D to make anyone bleed, virgin or not. When I didn't bleed after we had some row sex, I'm totally cool with row sex. He got pissy. He said I should have bleed because I was tight enough. But I guess he didn't realize that these are super elastic. He was convinced I had cheated on him before we had sex that day. It was really weird. I'm all for pretending to be a curious virgin, but I can't make my imaginary hymen pop and bleed, dude. I still laugh about it to this day. At a party, I had a girl straight up ask me if she could hold my D while I took a leak. I said why not, then I got bladder shy and disappointed her. Feels bad, man. A dude offered me a few hundred to fart in my mouth on our first date. I did not accept. When I was 18 I was really into photography. My main source of inspiration were those badass actresses from the past who happened to smoke or hold cigarettes on black and white photos. Think Audrey Hepburn, Anna Karina, Grace Kelly and the likes. I glammed up, took photos of myself and put them online. One guy really liked those photos, and I was glad someone got my art. He also liked old films, so we decided to go see one together. After the film, he offered me a cigarette and asked if I smoked. I said no. He then begged me to smoke one now and wanted to take photos of it and film it. It felt weird, but out of my naivety I didn't really think of anything. He got really turned on by this, and started moaning, and wanted me to blow cigarette smoke in his face. He then said that there's nothing hotter than kissing a girl after she's had a cigarette. At that point it was so weird that I came up with some excuse and left a sap. He then wrote me that he has smoking fetish and gets off by girls smoking. I don't smoke nor do I like the smell of it. So that was that. Ain't gonna kill those lungs of mine for that. I was in a long-term relationship with a guy who was into feet and that was actually pretty fine. He did talk about it first, so didn't come as a surprise. Also, it was a good workout for my feet. Haha. My ex had a dog-shaped dildo that they bought from Bad Dragon. They had used it on me once and asked if I liked it. I said yes. They then proceeded to tell me in detail graphically that if I liked this, just imagine what a real dog would feel like. That we needed to buy a big breed of dog, like a mastiff or a golden retriever, so that I could have a sex with the dog and they could watch. That it would turn them on so much knowing our family dog was secretly ducking me behind closed doors. I was absolutely horrified. The relationship only lasted 4 months and it still makes me sick thinking about it. There's a Cupid question about how wild you'll get, and I'm convinced that 99.9% of the people that say they'll try anything once have no idea what kind of it some people do. They should probably read these answers. I'm a dom, so I've seen a ton of weird it. One guy wanted me to brand him, like with a hot iron. A couple of guys were interested in serious damage to their genitalia. One wanted to be held underwater. Needless to say, I don't do things that can cause permanent damage or death. One time a girl wanted me to roleplay a Mexican apple thief, getting caught in her cider house, chasing her to the tasting room, where we made love so loudly that it could be heard all the way in the distillery. Dude I was talking to a few years ago wanted me to call him daddy. That isn't the weird part, though I'm vehemently against calling my sexual partner daddy since I call my own father daddy. He also wanted me to act like a little kid. Also not the weird part. Daddy little girl play is a thing, not my thing, but I try not to judge. The weird part that made me nope was how he continued a stream of comments about how amazing it would be if I was small like a little girl, that it would be so much better if I was completely hairless and had baby fat. It became increasingly apparent he didn't want to just fantasize about age play. He actually wanted a little girl. I ghosted him after that. Creeped me the duck out. I had a guy ask me to bite his D as hard as I could. All I could imagine were the headlines of me biting it off. I dated a guy very briefly. He was a pro football player. Absolutely gorgeous. The first night we slept together he wanted to pretend that we were on a plantation. He was a field hand and I was the daughter of the house. It was just way too uncomfortable and I half-heartedly roleplayed this, but it was not my thing at all. I went on a lovely date once, just to the local pizzeria, but the slices were hot and the convo was good. I was feeling pretty optimistic about this one. He had a job and a car and was an overall gentleman. I invited him into my car to smoke a J after pizza. I should mention it was summer as I had Birkenstock ESQ sandals on. So we are talking and I had my foot, without sandal on, tucked underneath me. He says, "Can I see that?" and gestures to my foot. Now, I'm a lot full of pizza and a little stoned, so I said, "My foot," and stretched my leg out cause I'm a dope. He started licking my toes in this, what I would imagine should have been sensual sort of way. All the while I have this face going on thinking about how the humidity was 90% and I am pretty sure I have had these sandals since Brittany and Justin dated, so dear lord my feet must smell. He, thankfully, figured out I was not into big toe play or whatever the duck these young kids be calling it and actually asked me. He said, "Oh, you didn't like that?" And all I could muster was that was dark different. Needless to say, a second date did not occur. Owe it. Silver and gold, Yukon Cornelius. Lol sweet. THX boo. One night stand. Call me Captain. I laughed. He left. Not immensely weird but funny. Hope I didn't give him a complex or something about it. Poor dude. He demanded I call him daddy in the middle of 6. So build up. No hint he had a daddy kink. Just demanded it very loudly mid-thrust. I personally feel very uncomfortable with the daddy stuff and relation toxics. Hooray for the people who love it. I ain't one of them. I just moaned louder hoping that would suffice. But I didn't actually say it. Of course. The personal squick was on my mind and killed the mood a bit. I told him later that if he has certain sexual requests he needs to bring them up in advance so we can discuss them and not throw them at me in the middle of ducking. I told him daddy is not at all my jam, but offered some other things I could call him and asked what he would prefer. Turns out he was big on being called sir. Edit. Words. It. Way too many people being asked to duck dogs. My guy was a tall, skinny, dorky but very cute and nice math professor with glasses, thin lips and disheveled hair. He looked like the stereotypical math nerd. We get to his place and he asks me to put my head under the couch while he ducks me doggy. Other requests, asking me to lick the bottom of his balls as he gently slaps my face around, and putting me into weird poses on his couch. I had a BF who I had dated for nearly 2 years, and then one day he told me that he wanted me to have a sex with his best guy while he watched. I said no, but he kept bringing it up. I'm open to most things sexually, but I just couldn't understand why he'd want this.